Hi there, I'm Marcus Sullivan, and I'm 28 years old. I fix cars at a shop in a tiny town called Riverside in Texas, where everyone knows what you ate for breakfast before you finish eating it. The streets are dusty, the diners serve the same pie every day, and gossip travels faster than lightning. I never thought I'd be telling this story, but here I am at 2 a.m., sitting in my garage with grease still under my nails, trying to make sense of everything that happened. My life used to be simple. Wake up, fix engines, go home, watch TV, sleep. But that all changed when my world got turned upside down by family drama I never saw coming. Riverside has maybe 800 people on a good day. You can drive through the whole place in 10 minutes if you don't hit the one traffic light. It's the kind of place where the biggest excitement is when someone gets a new pickup truck or when a high school football team wins a game. I live in a small house with a big garage where I work on cars after hours. The house isn't fancy, just a kitchen, a living room with an old TV, and 2 bedrooms. One I sleep in, the other I use for storing car parts and tools. My daily routine was boring but comfortable. Get up at 6, coffee and toast, walk to Murphy's auto shop, spend 8 hours elbow deep in engines, come home, eat dinner, maybe watch a movie, then bed. Simple and peaceful, exactly how I liked it. Or at least I thought I did until everything fell apart. I came from what most people would call a typical American family. My dad, Robert Sullivan, worked construction his whole life. Big hands, loud voice, and opinions about everything. He believed in hard work, following rules, and never doing anything that would make the neighbors talk. My mom, Patricia, cleaned houses for the wealthy families on the other side of town. She was quiet most of the time, but had strict ideas about how people should act. Both of them cared more about what other people thought than about being happy. In our house, showing feelings was seen as weak. My parents never hugged us or said nice things. They showed they cared by making sure we had food and clothes, and by setting lots of rules. Don't talk back, don't cause trouble, and most importantly, don't do anything that would embarrass the Sullivan name. Being the older kid, I learned early to do what was expected. Good grades in school, played baseball because Dad wanted me to learn to fix cars because it was practical, and got a job right after graduation. I wasn't the smartest kid around, but I worked hard and never caused problems. That made my parents happy, or at least they never complained about me. But the person who really mattered to me in that house was my little sister, Amy. Amy is 4 years younger than me. I remember when she was born, this tiny baby with curly red hair and bright green eyes that seemed to see everything. I was standing in the hospital hallway while Mom and Dad took turns holding her, and they looked happier than I'd ever seen them. That happiness didn't last long, but in that moment, everything felt perfect. Amy grew up like sunshine, always smiling, always finding the good in everything, but tough when she needed to be. She was the one who made me laugh when Dad yelled at me for breaking something, or when Mom gave me the silent treatment for getting mud on the carpet. I taught Amy how to throw a baseball, how to change a bike tire, and how to sneak extra cookies from the jar without Mom noticing. We had each other's backs no matter what happened. She'd cover for me when I stayed out too late, and I'd help her with homework when she struggled with math. We were partners in crime, always finding ways to have fun, even when our parents were being strict. But our family wasn't as happy as it looked from the outside. When I was about 14, I started noticing problems. Late at night, when they thought Amy and I were asleep, I'd hear my parents fighting. Not screaming fights, but angry whispers that felt worse than yelling. I'd hear Mom cry in her bedroom, talking on the phone about how trapped she felt. I'd hear Dad complaining about money, about work, about how nothing ever went right. One night, I caught Mom sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of something strong, staring at old photos and wiping tears from her eyes. I wanted to ask what was wrong, but I was too scared. Later, I heard her tell someone on the phone that she wanted to leave, but couldn't because of us kids. I didn't know if that made me feel grateful or guilty. Probably both. Amy was too young to understand what was happening, but she could feel the tension in the house. I remember when she was 8, I found her hiding in her closet, crying and asking me why Mom and Dad were always angry. I didn't know what to say, so I just sat with her and told her everything would be okay. I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. Even with all the problems at home, Amy and I found ways to make each other happy. We had our secret games, like pretending the garage was our spaceship or making up stories about the people who drove through town. When Amy was 12, she lost her favorite stuffed rabbit that she'd had since she was little. She was heartbroken, thinking Mom would be mad at her for being careless. I spent hours looking everywhere until I found it under the porch where our dog had hidden it. When I gave it back to her, she hugged me so tight I thought she might break my ribs. "You're my hero, Marcus," she said, and even though I laughed, inside I wished I could fix everything else that was wrong in our family. When I graduated high school, Amy was 14 and starting to grow up fast. She was still sweet and kind, but she was developing her own thoughts and dreams. She wanted to be a teacher because she loved helping little kids learn new things. She said kids deserve someone who would be patient and kind to them, especially when they were having trouble at home. I was proud of Amy, but I worried about her too. I knew our parents had specific plans for her future, and those plans didn't include her own dreams. They wanted her to get a practical job, something safe and respectable. After I finished school, I decided to stay in Riverside to be close to family. My job at the auto shop paid decent money, enough to rent my own place and save a little bit each month. I liked being near Amy, listening to her talk about school, her friends, and her dreams of teaching. Every Sunday, I'd go to my parents' house for dinner. Those meals were always awkward. Dad talked about work and complained about lazy people. Mom asked about my job and whether I was dating anyone respectable. I tried to keep things light by telling funny stories about customers at the shop. Amy usually stayed quiet during these dinners, just nodding and smiling, but she'd always catch my eye and make funny faces when our parents weren't looking. It was our way of staying connected, even when everything else felt stiff and uncomfortable. Things seemed normal, or at least our version of normal, until one day when Amy was 20 and in her second year at the local community college. I got a text from her that made my heart stop. "Marcus, I need to talk to you. Don't tell Mom and Dad. Please." I knew immediately something was very wrong. Amy wasn't dramatic, and she never asked me to keep secrets from our parents unless it was something serious. I called her right away, but she didn't answer. She just texted back, "Meet me at the park by the river at 8 tonight. Please come alone." That evening, I drove to the little park by Riverside Creek, where Amy and I used to play when we were kids. The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink, and the old swings creaked in the breeze. I sat on a picnic table, my stomach twisted in knots, waiting for Amy to show up. I kept checking my phone, wondering what could be so serious that she couldn't just tell me over dinner or during one of our regular talks. When Amy finally arrived, I could tell she'd been crying for hours. Her eyes were red and puffy, and she kept looking around like she was afraid someone might see us. She sat down next to me on the picnic table, her hands shaking as she tried to find the words to tell me whatever was wrong. The air between us felt heavy, and I could hear the creek babbling softly nearby. The same sound we'd listened to as kids when we came here to escape our parents' arguments. "Amy," I said, trying to keep my voice calm even though I was panicking inside. "What's going on? You're scaring me." She took a deep breath and looked at me with tears in her eyes. "Marcus, I'm going to have a baby." Everything around me seemed to freeze. The creek stopped babbling. The birds stopped chirping, and even the wind seemed to hold its breath. I stared at Amy, hoping I'd heard her wrong, hoping this was some kind of mistake. But the tears streaming down her face told me it was real. My little sister, the girl who used to ask me to check for monsters under her bed, was sitting here telling me she was pregnant. I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. "How far along?" I finally managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Amy wiped her nose with her sleeve, looking so young and scared. 3 months, she said. "I found out last week, but I think I've known for a while. I was just too scared to believe it." 3 months. That meant she'd been dealing with this alone for weeks, maybe longer. I wanted to ask a million questions, but I could see how fragile she was in that moment. "Amy," I said, reaching for her hand, "why didn't you tell me sooner? You know you can tell me anything." She squeezed my hand so tight it hurt. "I was scared, Marcus. I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe it would just go away, or maybe I was imagining it. But then I went to the clinic in the next town, and they confirmed it. I'm really having a baby, and I don't know what to do. My mind was racing with 1,000 thoughts at once. Amy was pregnant. She was scared, and she was only 20 years old. Who's the father? I asked, trying to keep my voice gentle. Amy's face crumpled, and she started crying harder. Jake Morrison, she said between sobs. We'd been dating for 6 months, but when I told him about the baby, he said it wasn't his problem. He said I should take care of it and not involve him. Then he blocked my number and won't talk to me at school. Jake Morrison. I knew that name. He was a year older than Amy, played football in high school, and always acted like he was better than everyone else in town. His family owned the biggest farm in the area, and Jake had a reputation for dating girls and then dropping them when he got bored. Anger burned in my chest like fire. Jake had gotten my sister pregnant and then abandoned her like she meant nothing. I wanted to drive straight to his house and make him take responsibility. But looking at Amy crying on that picnic table, I knew my anger wouldn't solve anything. Okay, I said, trying to sound calm and strong. We'll figure this out together. You're not alone in this, Amy. I'm here, and I'm going to help you no matter what. She looked up at me with hope in her eyes for the first time since she'd arrived. Really? You're not mad at me? Mad at you? Amy, you didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, this is complicated, but you're my sister, and I love you. We'll get through this together. She hugged me then, and I could feel how scared and alone she'd been feeling. As I held her, I realized our lives were about to change in ways I couldn't even imagine. Amy, I said carefully, we need to tell Mom and Dad. They're going to find out eventually, and it's better if it comes from you. Her whole body tensed up in my arms. No, Marcus, you don't understand. They'll hate me. You know how they are about family reputation, and what people will think. A pregnant daughter at 20 with no husband? They'll never forgive me. I knew she was right. Our parents cared more about what the neighbors thought than about almost anything else. An unmarried pregnant daughter in a small town like Riverside would be their worst nightmare. But I also knew we couldn't keep this secret forever. I'll be there with you when we tell them. I promised. I won't let you face this alone. 2 days later, I picked Amy up from her dorm and drove her to our parents' house. The white house with green shutters looked the same as always, with Mom's flower garden neat and tidy in front. But today it felt different, like we were walking into a storm. Amy sat in my truck, gripping my hand and taking deep breaths. I can't do this, Marcus, she whispered. Yes, you can, I told her. I'll be right there with you. No matter what happens, we'll face it together. We walked up to the front door, and I could feel Amy shaking beside me. Mom and Dad were in the living room watching the news when we came in. Dad was in his usual chair with a beer, and Mom was folding laundry on the couch. They looked surprised to see both of us together on a Wednesday evening. Marcus, Amy, what brings you both here? Mom asked, setting down a shirt and looking at us with curiosity. Dad muted the TV and turned to face us. This better not be about you needing money for something, he said in his gruff way. Amy looked at me, and I nodded encouragingly. She took a deep breath and said in a shaky voice, Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something important. I'm pregnant. The silence that followed was deafening. Mom's mouth fell open, and the color drained from her face. Dad's beer can slipped from his hand and hit the floor with a loud thud, spilling foam on the carpet. For a moment, nobody moved or spoke. Then Dad exploded. What did you just say? He roared, jumping to his feet. Amy started crying immediately. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean for this to happen. Didn't mean for it to happen? Mom found her voice, and it was cold as ice. Amy, do you have any idea what you've done? What this will do to our family? I know you're upset. I stepped in, trying to protect Amy. But yelling isn't going to help anything. Amy needs support right now, not anger. Dad turned his fury on me. Support? She's brought shame on this entire family. Dad, please. Amy begged. I want to keep the baby. I know it's not what you wanted, but I can't give up my child. Keep it? Mom stood up, her face twisted with disgust. Amy, You're 20 years old with no husband and no job. You can't raise a baby. You need to fix this mistake right now." "It's not a mistake," Amy shouted, the first time I'd ever heard her raise her voice to our parents. "This is my baby, and I'm going to love it and take care of it." Dad's face turned purple with rage. "No daughter of mine is going to be an unwed mother. If you're determined to ruin your life and embarrass this family, then you're no daughter of mine at all. Get out." "Robert," Mom said, but not to defend Amy, "think about what the neighbors will say. What will I tell my cleaning clients? How can we show our faces in town?" That's when I realized they weren't upset because Amy was scared or needed help. They were upset because of how it would make them look. "Fine," I said, putting my arm around Amy's shoulders. "If you're kicking out Amy, then you're kicking me out too. Come on, Amy, let's go." "Marcus, don't be stupid," Dad snapped. "This isn't your problem. Amy is my sister, which makes her my problem. If you can't support her when she needs you most, then I want nothing to do with you either." I led Amy out the door, slamming it behind us. Amy sobbed all the way to my truck, and I fought back my own tears. I didn't know what we were going to do, but I knew I couldn't let Amy face this alone. That night, Amy moved into my spare bedroom. It was small and filled with car parts, but we cleaned it out and made it as comfortable as we could. Amy barely spoke the first few days, just sitting on the bed, staring out the window, or sleeping. I worked extra hours at the shop to make more money and took on side jobs fixing neighbors' cars in my garage. The whole town started talking within a week. In a place like Riverside, secrets don't stay secret for long. I'd hear whispers at the grocery store, see people pointing when Amy and I walked down the street together. "There goes the Sullivan girl," they'd say. "Pregnant and no husband. What a shame." Some people were kinder than others. Mrs. Chun from the flower shop started bringing Amy soup and tea, saying young mothers needed to eat well. But most people just stared and gossiped, making Amy want to hide in the house all day. I started learning about pregnancy and babies, reading books I never thought I'd touch, how to help with morning sickness, what foods Amy needed to eat, what supplies we'd need when the baby came. Every night, I'd sit with Amy and talk about what we'd learned, try and make her feel less scared about becoming a mom. But sometimes, after she went to bed, I'd sit in my garage and wonder if I was strong enough for all of this. The months passed slowly. Amy's belly grew bigger, and she started feeling the baby move. The first time she felt a kick, she grabbed my hand and put it on her stomach, so I could feel it too. "That's my niece or nephew in there," I said, and Amy smiled for the first time in weeks. "Thank you for not giving up on me, Marcus," she said. "I don't know what I would have done without you. You're my sister," I told her. "I'll always be here for you." As Amy got closer to her due date, I became more nervous than ever. I read books about childbirth, practiced driving to the hospital in record time, and made sure we had everything ready for the baby. Amy seemed calmer than I felt, like she was finally accepting that she was going to be a mother. "Marcus," she said one evening as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, "do you think I'll be a good mom?" "You'll be the best mom," I told her without hesitation. "You're kind, patient, and loving. That baby is lucky to have you." The day Amy went into labor was a Tuesday in March. I was under the hood of a car when my phone rang. Amy's voice was panicked, but trying to stay calm. "Marcus, I think it's time. The contractions are getting stronger." I dropped everything and raced home to find Amy pacing in the living room, breathing heavily and gripping the back of a chair. "It's okay," I said, trying to sound confident even though I was terrified. "Let's get you to the hospital." The drive to the regional hospital took 45 minutes, and Amy gripped my hand so tight I thought she might break my fingers. "I'm scared, Marcus," she said as another contraction hit. "What if something goes wrong?" "Nothing's going to go wrong," I promised her. "You're strong, and I'm going to be right there with you." When we got to the hospital, the nurses quickly took Amy to a room and told me I could stay with her. For the next 8 hours, I held Amy's hand while she went through labor. I'd never seen anything so painful or so amazing in my life. Amy was incredibly brave, even when the pain was at its worst. "You're doing great," I kept telling her. Just breathe and focus on meeting your baby soon. Finally, after what felt like forever, we heard the most beautiful sound in the world, a baby's first cry. The doctor held up a tiny, perfect baby girl with a full head of red hair, just like Amy's. "It's a girl," the nurse announced, and Amy started crying tears of joy. "She's beautiful, Amy," I said, wiping tears from my own eyes. "She's absolutely perfect." Amy held her daughter for the first time, and I watched my little sister transform into a mother right before my eyes. "Hi, baby girl," Amy whispered. "I'm your mama, and I love you so much." "What are you going to name her?" I asked. Amy looked at the baby's tiny face and smiled. "Emma. Her name is Emma Rose Sullivan." I became Uncle Marcus that day, and it changed my life in ways I never expected. Emma was the most perfect baby I'd ever seen, with bright blue eyes and tiny fingers that wrapped around mine when I held her. Amy was a natural mother, even though she was young and scared. She got up every night for feedings, changed every diaper, and sang lullabies in a voice soft as silk. I helped however I could, learn to make bottles, and rock Emma to sleep when Amy needed rest. Our little house became filled with baby sounds, crying, cooing, and tiny laughs that made all the hard work worth it. The town's gossip continued, but I noticed something changing. Some of the older women who saw Amy with Emma started smiling instead of frowning. "That baby is beautiful," Mrs. Garcia from the bakery said one day. "Amy's a good mother." Not everyone was kind, but enough people were decent that Amy started feeling less like an outcast and more like a young woman doing her best in difficult circumstances. Emma grew fast, rolling over at 4 months, sitting up at 6 months, and babbling constantly. Amy finished her degree online while taking care of Emma, studying during naps and late at night after the baby went to bed. I was amazed by her determination and strength. "I want to be someone Emma can be proud of," Amy told me one night as she reviewed her textbooks. "I want her to know her mama worked hard to give her a good life." By the time Emma turned 1, Amy had her teaching certificate and got a job at the elementary school. It didn't pay much, but it was enough for us to get by, especially with me working overtime at the shop. Emma was walking and starting to say a few words, including mama and something that sounded like Marcus. Life settled into a routine that felt good and right. Amy would drop Emma off at the daycare before school, then pick her up afterward. I'd come home from work to find them playing on the floor or reading books together. Emma was a happy, healthy toddler who brought joy to everyone around her. Our parents never called or visited. Not once in 3 years did they try to see their granddaughter or check on Amy. I drove by their house sometimes and saw Dad working his garden or Mom hanging laundry on the line. They looked older and sadder, but they never reached out. It hurt more than I wanted to admit, but Amy and Emma were my family now, and that was enough. Emma's second birthday came and went with a small party in our backyard. Mrs. Chun brought flowers, Mrs. Garcia made a cake, and several neighbors stopped by to wish Emma well. Watching my niece blow out her candles with Amy's help, I felt proud of how far we'd all come. We weren't rich or perfect, but we were happy and we loved each other. That's what mattered most. As Emma grew into a curious, talkative 3-year-old, she started asking questions about family. "Where are Grandma and Grandpa?" she asked one day while we were looking at old photos. Amy and I exchanged glances, neither of us sure how to explain that some grandparents choose not to be part of their grandchildren's lives. Some grandparents live far away. Amy finally said, "But you have Uncle Marcus and me and lots of friends who love you." Emma seemed satisfied with that answer, but I could see it bothered Amy. She wanted Emma to have the big, loving family she'd never had, with grandparents who spoiled her and aunts and uncles who came for holidays. Instead, it was just the 3 of us, making our own traditions and creating our own version of family. One evening in late spring, Amy came home from work looking thoughtful. "Marcus," she said after we put Emma to bed, "do you ever wonder if we should try to contact Mom and Dad again? Emma's getting older, and she's going to start asking more questions about family." I've been thinking the same thing lately, especially when I saw how Emma interacted with the elderly customers who came to the shop. She was naturally friendly and loving, and I knew she'd benefit from having grandparents who cared about her. I don't know, I admitted, they made it pretty clear how they felt 3 years ago. What if they reject Emma the same way they rejected you? But what if they've changed? Amy asked, what if they regret what they said and want to meet their granddaughter? We talked about it for hours that night, going back and forth about whether it was worth the risk. Finally, we decided to wait and see if they ever reached out to us first. Summer came and went with trips to the park, swimming lessons for Emma at the community center, and long evenings on the porch watching Emma chase fireflies in the yard. Amy had grown into an incredible mother and teacher, confident and strong in ways she'd never been before. Emma was thriving, a bright and happy child who brought sunshine wherever she went. I'd found my purpose in life taking care of the two most important people in my world. Our little family wasn't traditional, but it worked for us. We had love, laughter, and each other. What more could we need? Then one Saturday afternoon in September, everything changed again. Emma was playing in the backyard, while Amy and I worked on cleaning out the garage. The weather was perfect, warm but not hot, with a gentle breeze that made the leaves rustle in the trees. Emma was pushing her toy car around the grass, making engine noises that reminded me of my work at the shop. "Vroom, vroom, Uncle Marcus," she called out, and I laughed at how seriously she took her pretend driving. Amy was sorting through old boxes when she came across a photo album I hadn't seen in years. "Look at this," she said, opening it to a picture of all four of us at Christmas when Emma was a baby. We looked so young and happy, before everything fell apart. "Do you miss them?" I asked, sitting down beside her on an overturned crate. Amy studied the photo for a long time before answering. "I miss the parents I thought they were," she said quietly. "I miss having a mom to call when Emma does something cute, or a dad to fix things around the house. But I don't miss the judgment and the anger." Just then, the doorbell rang from inside the house. "I'll get it," I said, figuring it was probably Mrs. Chun with more flowers from her garden. But when I opened the front door, I nearly fell over. Standing on my porch, looking older and more tired than I remembered, were my parents. Mom was carrying a small wrapped gift, and Dad was holding his hat in his hands like a nervous schoolboy. "Hello, Marcus," Mom said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Can we come in?" I stood there staring at them, my brain trying to process what I was seeing. After 3 years of silence, they were here on my doorstep, looking like they wanted to apologize for something. "What do you want?" I asked, not moving from the doorway. I wasn't trying to be mean, but I needed to protect Amy and Emma from getting hurt again. Dad cleared his throat. "We came to see Amy and our granddaughter." He said the word granddaughter, coming out like it was difficult to say. "We've made some mistakes, and we want to make things right." From the backyard, I could hear Emma laughing and Amy calling out warnings to be careful around the flowers. The sound of their happy voices made my decision for me. "You can come in," I said, stepping aside. "But if you say anything to hurt Amy or Emma, you'll have to deal with me." They nodded and followed me into the living room. The house was different from when I lived alone, toys scattered around, pictures of Emma on every surface, and the warm feeling that comes from a home full of love. Mom looked around, taking in all the signs of the family life she'd missed out on. "Amy," I called toward the back door, "can you come inside for a minute? And bring Emma with you." A few moments later, Amy came to the back door carrying Emma on her hip. Emma's red curls were messy from playing outside, and she had dirt on her knees from crawling around the garden. When Amy saw our parents sitting in the living room, she stopped dead in her tracks. The color drained from her face, and I could see her hands start to tremble. "Mom? Dad?" she said, her voice filled with disbelief. Emma looked back and forth between the strangers and her mother, sensing the tension in the room. Mom stood up slowly, tears already starting to form in her eyes. "Hello, Amy," she said, her voice breaking. "You look wonderful. And this must be Emma." Emma buried her face in Amy's shoulder, suddenly shy around these people she'd never met. Amy held her daughter protectively, not moving any closer to our parents. "What are you doing here?" she asked, and I could hear the fear in her voice. She was afraid they'd come to judge her again, to tell her she was still a disappointment. Dad struggled to find his words. "We came to apologize," he finally said. "We spent 3 years regretting what we said to you, what we did to our family. We were wrong, Amy, so very wrong. We missed everything, Mom added, crying openly now. Her first steps, her first words, her first birthday. We threw away 3 years with our granddaughter because we were too proud and too worried about what other people would think. Emma peeked out from Amy's shoulder, curious about these crying strangers in her living room. Amy sat down in a chair across from our parents, still holding Emma close. You said I was no daughter of yours, she reminded Dad, her voice steady but sad. You told me to fix my mistake. You made me feel like Emma was something to be ashamed of instead of the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. I know, Dad said, hanging his head. I said terrible things I didn't mean. I was angry and scared and stupid. But Emma isn't a mistake, Amy. She's our granddaughter, and we've been fools to miss out on knowing her. Mom reached into her purse and pulled out a small photo. We drive by the school sometimes, she admitted, just to catch a glimpse of you. We saw you play with the children at recess, and you looked so happy. And we heard from Mrs. Garcia at the bakery about how good you are with Emma, how you're raising her to be polite and kind. Amy looked at the photo Mom was holding. It was a picture of Amy and Emma at the park, taken from far away. You been watching us? Amy asked, not sure whether to be angry or sad. Mom nodded, wiping her eyes. We couldn't stay away completely. We needed to know you were okay, that Emma was healthy and happy. Every time we saw you two together, we realized what we'd given up. Emma had been listening to the conversation, and suddenly she spoke up in her clear 3-year-old voice. Are you my grandma and grandpa? She asked, looking directly at our parents. The simple question seemed to break something open in the room. Mom gasped and covered her mouth with her hands. Yes, sweetheart, she whispered. We're your grandparents, and we're very sorry we haven't been here to meet you before now. Emma studied them with the serious expression she got when she was thinking hard about something. Then she wiggled out of Amy's arms and walked over to Mom. Why are you crying? She asked, reaching up to touch Mom's face with her small hand. Because I'm sad that I missed so much of your life, Mom said, kneeling down at Emma's level. And because I'm happy to finally meet you. You're even more beautiful than I imagined. Emma looked at Dad, who was sitting quietly with tears in his own eyes. Are you sad too, Grandpa? She asked. Dad nodded, his voice rough with emotion. Very sad, little one, but also very happy to meet you. Emma seemed to think about this for a moment, then announced, Uncle Marcus says when people are sad, hugs make them feel better. Without waiting for permission, she wrapped her tiny arms around Mom's neck and squeezed tight. Mom broke down completely then, holding Emma and sobbing like her heart was breaking and healing at the same time. Dad came over and put his arms around both of them, and I saw him whisper, I'm sorry, over and over into Emma's curly hair. Amy was crying too, watching her daughter offer the kind of unconditional love and forgiveness that only children possess. I felt my own eyes fill with tears, amazed by Emma's pure heart and her ability to see past the complicated adult emotions to the simple truth that these were people who needed love. Over the next few hours, our parents slowly began to know their granddaughter. Emma showed them her toys, her books, and her artwork from school. She demonstrated how she could count to 20 and recite the alphabet. Mom and Dad listened to every word, asked questions about everything, and marveled at how smart and well-behaved Emma was. She's incredible, Amy, Mom said as we all sat around the kitchen table sharing lunch. You've done such a wonderful job raising her. I had help, Amy said, looking at me with gratitude. Marcus has been the best uncle and the best friend anyone could ask for. Dad turned to me, his expression serious. Son, I owe you the biggest apology of all. You stepped up when we failed. You took care of your sister and your niece when we should have been there. You did what parents are supposed to do. I said carefully. I wasn't ready to forgive completely, but I could see they were genuinely sorry. Amy and Emma needed family, and I couldn't let them face everything alone. We want to make up for lost time, Mom said. We want to be the grandparents Emma deserves, if you'll let us. Amy looked uncertain. 3 years of hurt couldn't be erased in one afternoon. This is a lot to process, she said. I'm glad you came, and I'm glad you want to know Emma. But I need time to think about how we move forward." Our parents nodded, understanding that rebuilding trust would take more than apologies and good intentions. They spent the rest of the afternoon playing with Emma in the backyard, pushing her on the swing I'd built and listening to her chatter about everything she'd think of. Before they left, Mom gave Emma the gift she brought, a handmade quilt with bright colors and patterns that would be perfect for Emma's bed. I started making this when we heard Amy was pregnant. Mom admitted, "I've been working on it for 3 years, adding to it every time I thought about the granddaughter I was missing." Emma loved the quilt immediately, wrapping herself up in it and spinning around the living room. "It's beautiful, Grandma," she said, and the word grandma made Mom start crying again. After our parents left, Amy and I sat on the porch while Emma napped inside, wrapped in her new quilt. "What do you think?" Amy asked. "Do you believe they've really changed?" I considered the question carefully. "I think they realize they made a mistake," I said, "but it's going to take time to see if they mean it. Emma likes them," Amy observed, "and they seem to genuinely love her. Kids are good judges of character." I agreed, but the real test will be whether they stick around when things get difficult, or if they disappear again the first time something doesn't go the way they want. Over the next few weeks, our parents began visiting regularly. Mom would come by after Amy got home from work, bringing groceries or helping with dinner. Dad would stop by on weekends to play with Emma in the yard or help me with projects around the house. They were careful not to overstep boundaries, always asking before making plans and respecting when Amy said she needed space. Slowly, cautiously, we began to rebuild our family relationships. Emma blossomed with the attention from her grandparents. She had Mom teach her to bake cookies and convinced Dad to help her plant a small garden in the backyard. For the first time in her young life, she was experiencing the special kind of love that grandparents give, patient, indulgent, and absolutely devoted. Amy watched it all with a mixture of joy and sadness. "I'm happy for Emma," she told me one evening, "but I can't help thinking about all the times I needed them over the past 3 years. All the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I was doing everything wrong, wishing I had a mom to call for advice. You survived without them," I reminded her. "You became an amazing mother all on your own. That's something to be proud of." One day in October, Jake Morrison showed up at the auto shop where I worked. I hadn't seen him in 3 years, not since he'd abandoned Amy and disappeared from town. He looked older, more serious, wearing an expensive suit that made it clear he'd done well for himself somewhere else. "Marcus," he said, approaching my workbench where I was rebuilding an engine, "I need to talk to you." I set down my tools and faced him, my hands still dirty with grease. "What do you want, Jake?" "I want to see my daughter," he said simply. "I heard I have a 3-year-old daughter named Emma, and I want to meet her." My blood started boiling immediately. "Your daughter?" I said, my voice getting louder. "You don't have a daughter, Jake. You made that clear 3 years ago when you told Amy to handle her problem alone." Jake had the decency to look ashamed. "I was young and scared and stupid," he said. "I made the biggest mistake of my life when I walked away from Amy. I regretted it every single day since then." "Regret doesn't make you a father," I told him. "I've been Emma's father figure for 3 years. I've been there for every fever, every scraped knee, every bedtime story. You gave up the right to call her your daughter when you abandoned her mother." "I know I have no right to ask," Jake continued, "but I want to make things right. I want to provide for Emma, help with her future, be part of her life." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Where was this concern 3 years ago when Amy was working 2 jobs and going to school while raising a baby? Where were you when Emma was learning to walk and had no father to cheer her on? Jake pulled out his wallet and showed me a picture. Amy and Emma at the park, the same kind of distant photo our parents have been taking. "I've been keeping track," he said. "I know Amy became a teacher. I know Emma is smart and beautiful, and I know you've been incredible to both of them. But I also know Emma deserves to know her biological father. What Emma deserves," I said, stepping closer to him, "is stability and people who won't abandon her when things get tough. You proved you're not that person." Jake was quiet for a moment, then said, I'm different now, Marcus. I have a successful business. I can provide for Emma's future, pay for college, give her opportunities she might not have otherwise. The mention of money made me even angrier. You think you can buy your way back into her life? Amy and Emma don't need your money. They need people who love them unconditionally. I do love them, Jake insisted. I loved Amy, and I love the daughter I've never met. I just want a chance to prove I've changed. I studied his face, looking for signs that this was just another selfish move on his part. He seemed sincere, but so had a lot of people who let Amy down over the years. This isn't my decision to make. I finally said, if you want to see Emma, you need to talk to Amy. But I'm warning you right now. If you hurt that little girl or her mother, you'll answer to me. That evening, I told Amy about Jake's visit. She was quiet for a long time, watching Emma color at the kitchen table. What do you think I should do? She asked. I sighed, wishing I had easy answers. I think you should be very careful. Emma has a good life now, with people who love her and won't leave her. Jake gave up his rights when he walked away. But what if he's really changed? Amy asked, what if he could give Emma things we can't? College tuition, opportunities, a future we can't provide. I hated hearing doubt in Amy's voice. She'd worked so hard to build a good life for Emma, and now Jake was making her question whether it was enough. Money isn't everything, Amy. Emma has love, stability, and a family that will never abandon her. That's worth more than any college fund. Amy nodded, but I could see she was torn. A few days later, she agreed to meet Jake at a coffee shop in town. I insisted on going with her, not because I didn't trust Amy's judgment, but because I didn't trust Jake not to manipulate her with promises and guilt. Jake was already waiting when we arrived, sitting in a corner booth and looking nervous. When Amy walked in, his face lit up with a mixture of joy and regret. Amy, he said, standing up, you look amazing. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Amy sat down across from him, her posture stiff and guarded. I sat beside her, ready to intervene if Jake said anything that upset her. What do you want, Jake? Amy asked, getting straight to the point. I want to apologize, he said. I want to try to make up for the biggest mistake I ever made. I want to meet Emma and be part of her life, if you'll let me. You had 3 years to reach out, Amy said coldly. 3 years to check if your daughter was healthy and happy. Why now? Jake looked down at his hands. Because I finally realized what I'd lost. I have a successful business now. I'm financially stable, and I want to provide for Emma's future. So this is about money? Amy asked, you think you can buy your way back into our lives? No, Jake said quickly. It's about responsibility. About doing what I should have done years ago. Emma is my daughter, and she deserves to know her father. Emma has a father figure. I interjected. She calls me Daddy, and I've earned that title by being there every single day. Jake looked at me with something that might have been jealousy. I'm grateful for everything you've done, he said. But I'm her biological father, and I have rights. Rights. Amy's voice got sharp. You gave up your rights when you told me to handle my problem alone. You don't get to waltz back into our lives just because it's convenient for you now. Jake was quiet for a moment, then pulled out a legal document. I've set up a trust fund for Emma, he said. College tuition, money for whatever she needs growing up. Amy stared at the papers but didn't touch them. You think money erases what you did? I think Emma deserves every opportunity in life, Jake said. And I think she deserves to know where she comes from. Amy looked at me, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. She wanted what was best for Emma, but she was afraid of letting Jake hurt their daughter the way he'd hurt her. I need time to think, Amy said finally. This isn't a decision I can make right here, right now. Jake nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Amy, please consider what's best for Emma. She's my daughter too, and I want to be part of her life. As we left the coffee shop, Amy was quiet and thoughtful. What if he's right? She asked as we drove home. What if Emma deserves to know her biological father? Emma deserves to be protected from people who might abandon her, I said. Jake made his choice 3 years ago. Why should Emma have to risk getting attached to someone who might disappear again? We talked about it for weeks. Amy consulted with our parents, who had their own opinions about Jake's sudden reappearance. Mom thought Emma deserved to know her father, while Dad was suspicious of Jake's motives. "Leopards don't change their spots," Dad said bluntly. "He left once, he'll leave again." In the end, Amy decided to let Jake meet Emma, but with strict conditions. The meeting would be at our house, with me and Amy both present. Jake could visit for 1 hour, and if Emma seemed uncomfortable or upset at any time, the visit would end immediately. Jake agreed to all the conditions, seeming grateful just for the chance to meet his daughter. The day of the meeting, Amy was a nervous wreck. She cleaned the house 3 times, changed Emma's outfit twice, and kept asking me if we were doing the right thing. "We'll find out," I told her. But Emma is smart and resilient. If Jake isn't good for her, she'll let us know. When Jake arrived, he brought a teddy bear and a children's book about a little girl who goes on adventures. Emma was playing in the living room when he came in, and she looked up with curiosity at this new stranger. Amy said gently, "This is Jake. He's someone I knew before you were born, and he wanted to meet you." Emma studied Jake with the same serious expression she'd given our parents. "Are you my daddy too?" she asked in her straightforward way. The question caught Jake off guard, and I saw tears form in his eyes. "I'm your biological father," he said carefully, kneeling down to her level. "But Marcus is your daddy. I'm just someone who loves you and wants to get to know you." Emma seemed satisfied with this explanation. She accepted the teddy bear and asked Jake to read her the book he'd brought. As he read, I watched his face transform with wonder and love as he got to know his daughter for the first time. Emma was charming and funny, asking questions about everything and making Jake laugh with her 3-year-old observations about the world. But I also noticed that when she got tired or wanted a snack, she came to me, not to Jake. I was still the one she trusted to take care of her needs. After Jake left, Emma played with her new teddy bear for a while, then seemed to forget about the visit entirely. "He seems nice," she told Amy later, "but I like Uncle Marcus better. He gives better hugs." Amy and I exchanged glances, both relieved that Emma hadn't been upset by meeting Jake. Over the next few months, Jake visited regularly, always following the rules Amy had established. He was patient and kind with Emma, never trying to force a relationship or compete with my role in her life. He brought books and educational toys, took Emma to the park, and slowly began building connection with his daughter. I had to admit, reluctantly, that he seemed to genuinely care about Emma's well-being. He asked thoughtful questions about her development, her likes and dislikes, and her daily routine. He respected Amy's parenting decisions and never tried to override her authority. But I still didn't fully trust him. 3 years of abandonment wasn't something that could be forgiven easily, and I worried that his newfound interest in fatherhood might fade if his business faced challenges, or if being a father turned out to be harder than he expected. Amy seemed to be warming up to Jake's presence, though she was still cautious. "He does seem different," she admitted to me one evening. "More mature, more thoughtful. And Emma enjoys his visits. Just don't let your guard down completely." I warned her. People can maintain good behavior for a while, but true character shows up during difficult times. As Emma's 4th birthday approached, Jake asked if he could help plan the party. Amy agreed, and Jake went overboard, renting a bounce house and hiring a magician. Emma was thrilled with the celebration, and even I had to admit Jake had done a good job making her day special. Our parents attended the party, and I watched them interact with Jake for the first time. They were polite but reserved, clearly still uncertain about his role in Emma's life. "He seemed sincere," Mom said to me quietly as we watched Jake help Emma blow out her birthday candles. "But actions over time matter more than words." Dad was less diplomatic. "We'll see how committed he is when the novelty wears off," he said. As the months passed, Jake proved his commitment by showing up consistently, even when Emma was sick or cranky. He learned her favorite songs, her bedtime routine, and the specific way she liked her sandwiches cut. Slowly, very slowly, Emma began to see Jake as a permanent part of her life. She started talking about Jake at school and including him in her drawings of family. She still called me Daddy and came to me for comfort when she was hurt or scared, but she began developing a separate, special relationship with Jake. One evening, as Amy and I watched Jake push Emma on her swing in the backyard, Amy said something that surprised me. I think I'm ready to forgive him. I looked at her, seeing peace in her face that hadn't been there for years. Are you sure? I asked. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, she said. But holding on to anger isn't helping anyone. Jake has proven he's committed to Emma, and watching them together makes me happy. I nodded, understanding what she meant. Jake's consistent presence in Emma's life had brought her joy, and that was what mattered most. As Emma's 5th birthday approached, Jake made an announcement that surprised all of us. I want to move back to Riverside, he said during one of his visits. I can run my business from anywhere, and I want to be closer to Emma. I want to be here for soccer games and school plays, not just weekend visits. Amy and I exchanged glances, both of us realizing this would change everything. If Jake moved back to town, he'd be a daily presence in Emma's life, not just a visitor. Are you sure about this? Amy asked him. Riverside isn't exactly a thriving metropolis. You might get bored. Jake smiled, watching Emma play with her toys on the living room floor. I've lived in big cities for the past few years, he said. I'm ready for small town life, especially if it means being close to my daughter. Within 2 months, Jake had bought a house on the other side of town and moved his business operations to Riverside. Emma was excited to have Jake nearby, and their relationship deepened as he became more involved in her daily life. He picked her up from school sometimes, took her to doctor appointments when Amy had to work, and became a regular at our weekly family dinners. Our parents gradually accepted Jake as part of the family, though Dad still made the occasional comment about leopards and spots. Mom, however, seemed genuinely pleased to have another adult helping to raise Emma. She needs all the love she can get, Mom said one day as we watched Jake teach Emma to ride a bicycle without training wheels. By the time Emma turned 6, our family had transformed into something none of us could have imagined years earlier. Amy had finished her master's degree and became the head teacher at her school. I had opened my own auto repair shop and was doing well enough to hire 2 employees. Our parents had become the devoted grandparents Emma deserved, showing up for every milestone and celebration. And Jake had proven himself to be a committed father who put Emma's needs above his own convenience. Emma thrived with all this love and attention. She was a confident, happy child who excelled in school and made friends easily. She had learned to see our unconventional family arrangement as normal and wonderful. I have the best family, she announced one day at dinner. I have Mommy, Daddy Marcus, Jake, Grandma, and Grandpa. That's more than most kids have. Amy and I smiled at each other across the table, both of us amazed by how everything had worked out. Our story wasn't traditional, but it was ours, and it was beautiful in its own way. One evening, as I tucked him into bed, she asked me a question that caught me off guard. Daddy Marcus, are you sad that Jake is my father too? I thought about how to answer her truthfully. No, sweetheart, I said finally. I'm happy that you have so many people who love you. Jake is your father, but I'll always be your Daddy Marcus, and nothing will ever change that. She hugged me tight and said, Good, because I love you the most. Children have a way of cutting through complicated emotions with simple truths. Emma loved all of us, but she knew who had been there from the beginning, who had earned the title of Daddy through years of bedtime stories, scrape-knee bandages, and unconditional love. As I sat on my porch that night, looking out at the quiet streets of Riverside, I reflected on how much our lives had changed. 5 years earlier, I'd been a single guy with a simple routine and no major responsibilities. Then Amy needed help, and everything changed. I became an uncle, a surrogate father, a family protector, and eventually part of a larger, more complicated but more loving family than I'd ever imagined possible. Our parents had learned that love was more important than reputation. Amy had discovered her strength and resilience. Jake had grown into a responsible father, and Emma had taught all of us about forgiveness, acceptance, and the many different ways a family can be formed. Sometimes the best families aren't the ones you're born into, but the ones you choose to create through love, commitment, and showing up for each other when it matters most. Our story was proof that people can change, that mistakes don't have to be permanent, and that children have an amazing ability to bring out the best in the adults who love them. As I went inside to check on Amy and Emma one more time before bed, I felt grateful for every challenge that had brought us to this point. Without the crisis of Amy's pregnancy, we might never have discovered how strong we could be together. Without Jake's abandonment and eventual return, Emma might not have learned about second chances and forgiveness. Without our parents' initial rejection and later redemption, we might not have understood the power of admitting mistakes and making amends. Every difficult moment had led us to something better, something worth all the tears and fears and sleepless nights. Emma was now 7 years old, thriving in second grade and talking about becoming either a teacher like her mom or a mechanic like her daddy Marcus. She had inherited Amy's kindness, Jake's intelligence, and my practical nature. She was surrounded by adults who would do anything to protect her and help her achieve her dreams. Our family dinners now included 5 adults and one amazing little girl who kept us all laughing with her observations and questions about the world. We celebrated birthdays, holidays, and ordinary Tuesdays with equal enthusiasm. We supported each other through challenges and celebrated each other's victories. We had created something beautiful out of what started as a crisis, and I was proud of all of us. Amy had grown from a scared 20-year-old into a confident woman and mother. Our parents had transformed from rigid, judgmental people into loving grandparents who put family above appearances. Jake had evolved from an irresponsible young man into a devoted father, and I had discovered that being needed by the people you love is one of life's greatest gifts. On Emma's 7th birthday, as we all gathered around the kitchen table to sing happy birthday, I looked around at the faces of my chosen family and felt overwhelming gratitude. Emma made a wish and blew out her candles and announced, "I wish for our family to stay together forever and ever." "That's a wish that's already come true, sweetheart," Amy told her, and I knew she was right. We'd been through the worst and come out stronger. We'd learned that family isn't about being perfect. It's about showing up for each other and refusing to give up when things get difficult. Our story was proof that love really can conquer all, that second chances are worth giving, and that the most beautiful families are sometimes the ones that get built piece by piece through choice, commitment, and unconditional love. As I write this story now, Emma is 8 years old and full of dreams for her future. She wants to travel the world, help people in need, and maybe have a big family of her own someday. Amy has been promoted to principal of her school and is considering running for the school board. Jake has expanded his business and hired several local employees, contributing to our small town's economy. Our parents have become active volunteers at Emma's school and the local community center, using their wisdom and experience to help other families. And I'm still fixing cars. But now I also coach Emma's little league team and help organize community events. We've all learned that life rarely goes according to plan, but sometimes the unexpected detours lead to destinations more beautiful than anything we could have imagined. Emma's arrival in our lives was unplanned, but she became the center around which our family rebuilt itself into something stronger and more loving than it had ever been before. The crisis that seemed like it would destroy us actually saved us, teaching us what really matters and showing us how much we were capable of loving. Our story isn't unique. Families everywhere face challenges that test their bonds and force them to choose between fear and love, judgment and acceptance, pride and forgiveness. We're sharing our story because we want other families to know that it's never too late to make different choices, to repair broken relationships, and to build something beautiful out of what seems like destruction. If you're facing a family crisis right now, if someone you love is going through something difficult, or if you've made mistakes that seem unforgivable, remember our story. Remember that people can change, that love is stronger than fear, and that the most beautiful chapters of your life might be the ones that come after the most difficult times. Emma taught us that children are resilient, that they can handle complicated family situations as long as they know they're loved. Amy showed us that young mothers can overcome incredible challenges when they have support and determination. Jake proved that people can learn from their mistakes and become better versions of themselves. Our parents demonstrated that it's never too late to admit you were wrong and make amends. And I learned that being needed by the people you love, stepping up when others count on you, and choosing family over convenience are some of the most rewarding experiences life has to offer. Our family looks different from the traditional picture, but it works for us. Emma has 2 father figures, devoted grandparents, and a mother who would move mountains to protect her. She's learning that family can be complicated, but that love makes everything worthwhile. As she grows up, She'll face her own challenges and have to make her own choices about what kind of family she wants to create. But she'll do it knowing that she comes from people who chose love over fear, who fought for each other when it would have been easier to walk away, and who proved that the strongest families are often the ones that get tested the most. Our story continues to unfold every day, with new challenges and new joys, new lessons learned and new memories made. We don't know what the future holds, but we know we'll face it together, as a family that chose each other and committed to loving each other through whatever comes. That's the most important thing Emma will learn from us. Not that life is always easy or that families are always perfect, but that real love means showing up, staying committed, and never giving up on the people who matter most. This is our story, and we're proud of how it turned out, not because it was easy, but because we chose to write it together with love, forgiveness, and hope as our guides. Sometimes the best stories are the ones that start with crisis and end with triumph, that begin with broken relationships and conclude with stronger bonds than ever before. Emma's story is still being written, and she'll add her own chapters as she grows up and creates her own family someday. But the foundation we've built together of love, support, and unwavering commitment will always be there for her to build upon. She'll know that she comes from people who face impossible situations and found ways to overcome them, who made mistakes and learned to do better, who proved that family isn't about perfection, but about persistence. Our journey from crisis to triumph wasn't quick or easy, but it was worth every difficult moment because it led us to where we are now, a family that might not look traditional but is bound together by choices made with love, commitment demonstrated through action, and a little girl who brought out the best in all of us. As Emma grows older and our family continues to evolve, we'll keep learning from each other, supporting each other, and showing up for each other no matter what challenges come our way. That's what family means. Not the family you're born into necessarily, but the people you choose to love and commit to, the ones you show up for when they need you most, and the ones who do the same for you. Our story is proof that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones that get built through adversity, strengthened through challenges, and united by the conscious choice to love each other unconditionally. Emma may not have been planned, but she was exactly what our family needed to become whole. Her arrival forced all of us to examine our priorities, make difficult choices, and ultimately discover what really matters in life. 5 years after that first crisis that seemed like it would tear us apart, we're stronger, happier, and more connected than we ever were before. Emma has a village of people who love her, support her, and will always be there for her. Amy has proven to herself and to the world that she can handle whatever life throws at her. Our parents have learned that love is more important than appearances. Jake has discovered the joy and responsibility of being a father. And I've found my purpose in being the person my family can count on no matter what. We're not perfect and we still face challenges, but we face them together as a team that's committed to each other and to the little girl who brought us all together in the most unexpected and wonderful way. This is the story of how a crisis became a blessing, how a family that seemed broken found a way to heal and grow stronger, and how love really can triumph over fear, judgment, and the mistakes we all make along the way. Emma will grow up knowing she's loved by many people, that she comes from a family that fights for each other, and that the most important thing in life is not avoiding problems, but learning how to face them with courage, love, and the support of people who will never give up on you. That's our gift to her, and it's the legacy we hope to leave, that families are built not by perfection but by persistence, not by avoiding challenges but by meeting them head-on together, and not by giving up when things get difficult but by choosing love over fear again and again. Our story shows that redemption is possible, that people can change, and that the most beautiful chapters of life often come after the most difficult times. Emma's birth seemed like a disaster that would destroy our family, but instead it became the catalyst that helped us all become better versions of ourselves. We learned that being judgmental is easy, but being loving takes courage, that maintaining appearances is simple, but building real relationships requires vulnerability, and that avoiding difficult conversations might seem safer, but having honest discussions leads to authentic connections. Our family today is a testament to the power of second chances, the importance of showing up for people you love, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. Emma doesn't remember the early days when it was just Amy, her, and me in that small house, struggling to make ends meet. To her, having a big family that loves her is normal. She doesn't know about the nights Amy cried herself to sleep wondering if she was doing the right thing, or the times I worked 18-hour days to pay for diapers and doctor visits. She just knows she's loved, and that's exactly how it should be. Children shouldn't have to carry the weight of adult struggles or feel responsible for the complicated paths that led to their happy endings. Emma's innocence and joy remind us every day that all our sacrifices were worth it. When she laughs, when she runs to hug us, when she draws pictures of our big, messy, beautiful family, we remember why we fought so hard to stay together. The other day, Emma came home from school and announced that her teacher had asked the class to write about their families. "I told her I have the biggest, best family in the whole world," Emma said proudly. "I drew a picture with Mommy, Daddy Marcus, Jake, Grandma, and Grandpa, and Mrs. Peterson said it was beautiful." Amy and I looked at Emma's drawing, and it was indeed beautiful. Not because of artistic skill, but because of what it represented. Stick figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun, all smiling, all connected. That's how Emma sees us, and that's the truth that matters most. Our story isn't about perfect people making perfect choices. It's about imperfect people who chose love over fear, who decided that family is worth fighting for, and who learned that the strongest bonds are often forged in the fire of adversity. We made mistakes along the way. Our parents were too harsh. Jake was irresponsible, Amy was scared, and I was sometimes overwhelmed. But we all learned and grew and became better versions of ourselves because we had Emma to love and protect. She was a catalyst that transformed a collection of broken relationships into a real family. As I finish writing this story, I can hear Emma and Amy in the kitchen making cookies for tomorrow's school bake sale. Jake is coming over for dinner, and our parents will probably stop by afterward to play board games with Emma. It's an ordinary evening in our extraordinary life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Our family was born from crisis, strengthened by challenges, and bound together by choice. Emma will grow up knowing that she's loved unconditionally, that her family will always have her back, and that the most important things in life aren't things at all. They're the people who choose to love you every single day. When Emma is older, we'll tell her the whole story of how our family came to be. We'll explain why her arrival was unexpected but not unwanted, why some people made mistakes but learned to do better, and why love really is stronger than any obstacle life can put in your way. She'll understand that families come in all shapes and sizes, that perfection isn't the goal but persistence is, and that the most beautiful stories are often the ones that start with the words, "I don't know how, but we'll figure out together." Our journey from crisis to triumph took 5 years, but it will last a lifetime. Emma has given us all a reason to be better than we thought we could be, and we've given her a foundation of love that will support whatever dream she decides to chase. This is our story. Messy, complicated, challenging, and absolutely beautiful. It's proof that families aren't just born, they're built one choice at a time, one day at a time, one act of love at a time. And sometimes, when life throws you the biggest curveball you can imagine, that curveball turns out to be exactly what you need to discover who you really are and what really matters. Emma was our curveball, and catching her changed everything for the better. She taught us that love multiplies when it's shared, that second chances are sacred gifts, and that the word family is defined not by blood or tradition, but by the people who show up for you when you need them most. As Emma grows up and our family continues to evolve, we'll keep choosing each other, keep showing up for each other, and keep proving that love really can conquer all. That's our promise to Emma, to each other, and to anyone who needs to hear that broken things can be healed, that mistakes can be forgiven, and that the most beautiful families are often the ones that get built from the ground up with nothing but love, determination, and hope. This is Marcus Sullivan, signing off from our little house by the river in Riverside, Texas, where a family that started with crisis has found its way to joy, where a little girl named Emma Rose brought out the best in all of us, and where love proved once again that it's the strongest force in the universe. If you're facing your own family crisis right now, remember our story. Remember that the darkest moments often come right before the dawn, that the people who seem impossible to forgive might surprise you, and that children have an amazing ability to heal the hearts of the adults who love them. Don't give up on your family. Don't give up on love. And don't give up on the possibility that tomorrow might be the day everything starts to turn around. Sometimes the best endings are the ones nobody saw coming, and sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones that almost didn't survive their beginning. Our family is living proof that miracles happen every day, and they usually look a lot like people choosing to love each other against all odds.